Hello, my name is Lily Ramírez. I'm from South Central Los Angeles, an abstract painter, and welcome to Stefan's house at Hill House in Pasadena. And he has like multiple art exhibitions going on, but this one is mine. It's called So Far Out of Sight, and they're oil on canvas based paintings, and they're all landscapes. Some are like thoughts, some are memories, some are conversations, but as of what we're showing, it's like a mixture of all that. When I start a painting, I start thinking about the conversations I had in my past with like my mom, with my friends, the dialogue between my community and me, the presence of something so like literally in my face. And then when I go in my studio, I kind of like decharged, and then I feel I gain all that charge back and put it on the canvas. And sometimes they're not so literal to a point where, you can't understand. Like, I want the painting to look abstract. That way, when somebody sees the painting, they could relate to it in a way I'm relating to it. Or they could look at a painting and have their own relationship with the painting, even though they have a story, even though they have a background. But I like to have it more universal rather than such a literal image in someone's face, because sometimes conversations come from so many backgrounds, so many ideas and languages and forms of, how someone lives, how someone wants to live in the present, the future. So I feel, it's like the middle. I feel it's the middle of having, being so maximalism and so minimalism. It's the abstract of the both. Like, it's abstract. You try to figure out what you're trying to see, what you're trying to look for, what you're trying to like understand. Just like how, when you're going through a conflict, you always try to understand what is the solution or why did it happen. So I feel when it comes to my paintings, I try to find the middle brother of the mind and the soul. Like, I feel the painting needs to be that the middle child between the mind and the soul. And sometimes, like, even a conversation with a friend is super meaningful. Like, I remember, how she felt. I remember how her actions. I remember how she was expressing herself. And sometimes that stays with me. And when I start a new painting, I try to like mimic the way she was expressing herself, the way she kept explaining the situation. So I don't know, I sometimes see people and like their surroundings, like I block their story into like color, and then like where they came from or where the conversation was. So I feel like I am paying attention to everybody, but when it comes to my studio, or to my practice, it becomes like a whole different feeling. for example, like these two, they both came from different like feelings. One is called, this one's called Wicked, and this one is called Lo Más Lejos, like the furthest thing. And when I came in my studio, there was days where I felt like I felt more like her, I felt more like her. So it's always like how I feel, it's how I start painting it. Because since in my perspective, in my point of view, they all have their own worlds. They all have their own mind. They all have their own soul. So I feel I'm the middle child where I try to bring both of their conversations together. Both of, they might be different. They might be color different, texture, the gestures. But I always try to be the middle child when it comes to painting, because I want to understand, like, how can the color and the mark making come together? How can the mind and the soul come together? How can, someone so outspoken and someone so quiet come together? So the balance is between two different things. So, it's like when you are homesick. It's like you wanna travel, you wanna be somewhere else. But when you're in that new environment, you start wanting to go back home. And it's the feeling of, but I wanted to go, but I want to go back. So it's always, that's why they're so abstract. That's why the movements are all over the place. The idea is always changing. So I feel like that's when the idea of a landscape comes in. The idea between us humans and the community and the landscape we're in changes. When I was really little, I always felt like I wanted to be a painter, like a child. I was a child, maybe 4 or 5, and I kept telling my dad, if I could get some crayons, I could get markers, I want to like just draw. And I remember growing up just wanting to draw, going into my room and just drawing. I remember going to like art, like camps, like science camps and all those other type of camps, but I always felt like I was an outside child. Like I wanted to be alone painting. I wanted to just be drawing. I wanted to just color. And I always felt like it was like an escape from like my surrounding, a lot of living in South Central. It was a lot of chaos, a lot of movement, a lot of people and different cultures. So I felt like I was grounded when I was painting, I was drawing. I felt in peace. And yeah. I think when I was a child and I kept it, and I always felt like I wanted to be a painter. I wanted to go to art school. I loved my art teachers. They were like the best people out there, and they were the ones that showed me what was a museum, what was a gallery, what was art, because I never grew up with art. I didn't even know there were galleries until I went to college. I didn't know there was art museums until I was in college. I just thought, having an art class, that was the only thing. So when I went to college, that's when, I realized like, wow, I could actually be an artist, be an art teacher, be someone in the art world. I remember the first time I read about Peter Doig. It was like, for me, it changed my life. The way he layered colors, the way he used mineral spirits, the way he would add and remove and just add so much layers of paint in his canvases. The way, like even the sizes of his paintings, like how a size matters towards the idea of what he wanted to paint, where he grew up, how like music is involved in his paintings, how, just being from Canada, then traveling. So I wish one day I could meet Peter Doig, but yeah, him. And then Jonathan Lasker, the idea of like the white, the mark making, the texture, the gesture of how it's applied on canvas, that changed my whole, like, what is fine art? Like, what is a conversation between abstract and conceptual art, and just this whole other world of language, of art language. And yeah, I think, like, yeah, Robert Ryman, Peter Doig. And then with time, I also saw a painting of Jonathan Lasker, and it's like, oh, like how something so thick and so rigid could mean so many things. So yeah, I think it's just the idea of this conceptual art, and how a painting can have so many conversations about color, texture, even the size, where it comes from, who is involved in the conversation, who can we bring in the conversation. So, yeah.
You mentioned music, Peter Doig, and we have a lot of music.
Yes, and I seen his Instagram, and he has music going on, and then it's like, that idea, yeah.
Do you listen to music while you're painting?
I do listen. So that's the thing. Either I listen to music or I listen to nothing. It all depends also how I feel. If I feel I'm like uplifted, then I don't need so much music. If I feel I need a little bit of motivation, I do listen to music. So I'm not like, this deep person into music, but I do love Bad Bunny. I love Bad Bunny.
Okay.
Like reggaeton. So, yeah, I think it also, it's like the idea of having Bad Bunny and having Peter Doig in a room, and I'm still the middle child. It's like these two different worlds, but I want to put it together in a painting, and that's like, like these two conversations that I trying to show people, like, the difference between different cultures, different backgrounds. And, you know, I've been exposed to so much by being born and raised in Los Angeles that when it comes to like cultures and people and food, it all becomes so abstract. I feel I can't like focus on one thing. It just, the colors just start jumping in, the gestures, the sizes. That's why they all also have different sizes, like different like pockets into my mind, different ways of expressing something, different ways of like putting something together. They're like walking diaries, if I may say. My next project I might have a solo show probably in London, and it will be my first ever solo show there, or even showing there. So I'm really excited, nervous, you know, because it's like taking my culture, you know, me being from South Central to heading all the way to, you know, London with my paintings, with my background. It's really nice, you know. It's nice when people are interested in what's the title of the painting, why do you title them this way, or, you know, if maybe they don't even know how to speak Spanish, and then that's when a conversation starts. That's when I'm able to express what they are. I'm able to show other people where I come from, where the paintings come from, and that's just like a whole learning experience.
How do you choose the titles? Is it difficult sometimes to choose the title, or just as intuitive?
So sometimes when I am listening to music, I listen to like the lyrics very carefully, and sometimes by 2-3 words from a lyric, I expand that. I think about like where's it coming from? Like, where is it going? The idea of, you know, something so small can mean so much. Like, for example, this one, and it's called A la ola le pedí socorro, which means, like, the painting is called Me estoy ahogando y a la ola le pedí socorro, which means I'm drowning in emotions. I'm drowning in thoughts. I'm drowning in my own wave. And it's a lyric from a song from Bad Bunny. And it's just, you know, like, we all have those emotions. We all are drowning in emotions. We all come from like so many things. And it's just, you know, that small sentence made me think of so much that, you know, I made it into a painting. I made it into like a whole conversation of emotions and thoughts, and how we drain ourselves into one perspective of thinking, one idea. So I think when it comes to titles, I also remember of the things my grandma used to say to me, or my dad. Like, they're like myths, or, you know, sometimes they would be so intense with the way they'll talk to me that you know, it stayed in my head, like, oh man, like, so I make it into a title, and then I make it into a painting, or the painting becomes the title. It's just, you know, the language, or the memory of family members and friends, of how they talk, they speak, or they explain something. You know, sometimes like the littlest memories are so profound in people that when it comes to showing them in paintings, that's why they have a lot of movement and color and gesture, because I sometimes don't even understand like why that conversation happened. Why did she say, why they meant what they said. And now that I'm older, it's like, now I get it. Now I understand. And that's another thing, like I never grew up with art or my family or anything, but when it came to paint, you know, for them, this perfect painting is a perfect painting. Like it has to be painted in a certain way. You have to draw this beautiful flowers and you know, like a perfect picture. But my family didn't understand what was abstract. They didn't, you know, for them it was like, what is this? But then the way I wanted to include my family, the way I wanted them to feel included was with titles. Once they read the titles, or, you know, they care about the titles, they're mostly in Spanish, and they're probably things they've told me. Like it's either good things, bad things, disrespectful things, or, you know, for them it's like, oh, I remember, like I know what this means. And then that's when they could probably look at the painting and be like, they have their own connection. They have, you know, it's like, does this mean what I meant to tell her? Does this mean what, you know, we say? Or like, so I feel the way I include my family or a lot of my culture and language is in the titles. Because the paintings are abstract. You know, the paintings, you could connect to them. I could connect to them. Stefan could connect to them. Anybody can. But sometimes when it comes, again, with the names of the paintings, that's where certain people connect personally. That's when it comes relatable. That's when, you know, my culture, my background come together, you know. And then that's when, let's say, showing in another country, that's, for me, that's important. You know, they might relate to an abstract painting. They'll read the title, they might not relate to it, and that's when I come in and explain who I am as a person, who I am as an artist. And that's a conversation when it comes universal, when it comes, you know, the thought of a painting, the thought of abstract, even how, like, you know, like how language connects people, how language brings communities together, or how, you know, we're just interested in something or in someone, that it's not the same as how we say things, the way we express things. So I feel titles are really important when it comes to my work.